Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm playing Torpedo chess, where pawns can always move either 1 or 2 squares forward. My goal is to win 5 games. Let's get started with game number 1. Alright, I'm hoping that we can play this a little bit more aggressively this time. I do have to be careful of en passant, since that is always an idea. I mean, obviously I'm going to take a free pawn. I am just a sucker for these gambits, so I always accept them. Sure, queen trade means it's less dangerous. There's no ICBM coming my way trying to win the queen. Also, I forgot that apparently we're rated 1700 in this variant, unless this variant is like a combination of other variants, which could very well be the case. Okay, d5. Let's play e3. I'm just going to put this bishop on the long diagonal. Okay, bishop b4 is check. We'll just block it for now. Trade, sure. I mean, I can do the same thing on c3. Knight to f6. Let's play check. Maybe we can get the knight to pin itself, then like knight to e5. Okay, we get the alternative, which is just a bishop trade, which I am very happy with since the center is very open. That means it's not crowded with pawns or pieces, and I'm happy to have a bishop that works better in an open center than knights do. Knights are just a lot slower. Better for maneuvering, like if I need to maneuver through pieces, happy to have a knight, but for a bishop, I'd rather have this nice open center. So I do have a leg up in that sense. Also, you'll notice I played king to e2. There's really no need to castle since there aren't that many pieces on the board. If anything, the king will be an active piece in this endgame. Okay, it seems we get the resignation. With that, we win game number 1 and get a few extra rating points. Let's go ahead and move on to game number 2. All right, game number 2, we get the white pieces again. Let's try d4. d5, nice. Our opponent going right back for the center. Our opponent's name is I Win Your Mom. Okay, we get e6, let's play e3. I have to be careful because last time I thought that this was like a sneaky trap to play e5 next, but the problem with being able to move 2 squares ahead every single turn is that en passant still exists. So for example, e5 here, we just lose a pawn to en passant. So let's play knight to f3, but if we bolster up e4 with like a bunch of pieces and actually defend that square, e5 is plausible because after en passant, you just take back. Okay, bishop to f6 is a very suspect move. Let's play bishop d3. If we do get e5, again, en passant, we just win a piece, or rather a pawn. Knight to e7, knight to d2. We're just playing a normal in system right now, keeping in mind the idea that the pawn can move 2 squares at a time. c3 to stop the idea of knight to b4, harassing our bishop. I'm not really sure what our opponent is playing. Maybe g6 and fianchetto. Okay, is this an actual opening? Knight to f5? I guess I could take and double my opponent's pawns, but I don't think I win anything from that. So instead, I'm going to play knight to e5, controlling the center, maybe allowing my opponent to castle so I can play queen to f3. Okay, opponent takes with the knight. Let's take back with the pawn, because I feel like this bishop could be very useful in a kingside attack, and it seems very likely that my opponent will castle kingside. Bishop back, sure. Let's play queen to f3. It does telegraph our intentions very clearly, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense for our opponent to leave the king in the center or even castle queenside. Okay, bishop to d7. Let's play knight to b3 with the idea of knight d4. Maybe we can incite c5. Ooh, bishop c6. Knight here, threatening to take the bishop, double the pawns. Otherwise, offering a trade and also threatening to win a pawn on f5. I kind of want my opponent to take because now it evens out my pawn structure. Now I have a nice solid pawn chain all the way through the center of the board. Opponent's bishop is a honorary pawn on c6, and I have full freedom to move into the king side. Again, just waiting for my opponent to castle kingside first. Okay, h6. It's interesting because my opponent does have the option now, because of this move, to play queen d7 and then castle long. I'm wondering if I can castle short and then still justify a kingside attack. And I think I can, so I will castle short to basically make my opponent more comfortable with castling short themselves, and then maybe I can do like a little rook lift instead. Oh, queen d7. Opponent has different ideas altogether. Okay, so I might need to be prepared here to launch a queenside attack. Let's start with a4 right away. See what our opponent decides to play. Okay, we do get that long castle. Let's play b4, threatening to trap the bishop, and in general, just pushing into the queen side. Ooh, b5. Let's take. Seems like we win a pawn here on a7 after we trade bishops. Nice. And this should already be pretty comfortable for us to play. Okay, we'll go ahead and take the chance to double rooks. King moves back to c8, which is probably the safest way to play this. Let's drop the bishop back. This bishop probably has more of a future on h4, maybe getting traded off. And we unleash the queen on f7 as well. f5. Okay, we're definitely going to take en passant, and now we're threatening rook takes c7, which should be pretty devastating. Check forces the king back over. Discovered check with the bishop wins us the queen. And we're probably looking at checkmate a little bit after that. So check. Take the queen. King moves forward. Check again. King moves back over, bring the queen in through the light squares, and we're threatening mate in 1. I believe it's unstoppable. Nice, we do get one final thrust from our opponent, but with that, we win game number 2. Let's go ahead and move on to game number 3. All right, game number 3, we get the white pieces again. It's kind of interesting. Our opponents are getting progressively harder. We played a 1400 first. I believe our last game was against a 1500, and now we get a 1600 rated player with the exact same opening, playing symmetrically again. Queen, okay, what is this? Okay, is this justified? What is this? Well, let's play e3 to ground the bishop and develop the light squared bishop. I have no idea where this queen thinks she's going, but we are going to do our best to stop her. Okay, e6. I can't even imagine that was a misclick because bishop d7 doesn't make too much sense either. Let's play this, try to bother the queen on d7. Knight to c6. Let's play c3 for now. Again, always trying to stop knight to b4 because normally the idea is bishop d3, but bishop b5 is super interesting here. Pins the knight to the queen and the king. Knight to e5 could follow. We get bishop to d6. I always like to drop the bishop back. My opponent takes, I take back, unleash the rook on the king side, and we're looking at some exciting attacks. Not to mention, now g5 is a possibility in one move. Okay, knight to f6. Let's finish developing first before we get too carried away. b6, looking for the fianchetto perhaps. Okay, a little bit suspect, looking right at a pawn, but it might work. Maybe our opponent wants to castle long here. Let's play queen to e2. It's a nice neutral move, leaves both of these things open, and bishop to a6 is now on the board as well. Knight to a5. Opponent maybe not comfortable with the fact that I've allowed them to make the move first towards whichever side they want to castle. We get knight to a5, probably looking for c5 if I had to imagine, but it vacates the e5 square, so I'm going to centralize my knight, target the queen, maybe f4 and then g5. I mean, even if my opponent doesn't castle kingside, that's so much space that it's probably worth it. Okay, we do get queen to d6. If I play g5 now, knight to e4, takes, bishop to a6, we could get a trade, and that looks a lot better for me, so I'll go ahead and play g5. I mean, I end up with a knight that's centralized, and my opponent ends up with a knight that's on the side of the board. Not to mention, if all of those captures happen, my opponent's knight really has no way to get out of there either. Knight to d7. Let's bolster our center with f4, offering our knight the protection of the recapture. We've now hindered long castle as well, because if my opponent decides to castle long, we just take on f7, we fork both rooks and the queen. Okay, g6, defending the h7 pawn from these two attacks. But now this pawn is backwards. We say it's backwards because there's too many pieces controlling h6. If this pawn moves forward, I take it en passant. So this pawn is stuck. We call it a backwards pawn. So, okay, let's do it. Let's play king to f2. The reason I want to play king to f2 is the center is, for all intents and purposes, closed. It's a closed center. And I want to bring my rooks over, but I don't want to castle long and allow c5, takes, rook c8, looking straight at my king. There's some scary ideas. Okay, queen moves back to target the pawn. Let's play knight to f3 to defend it. The cool thing about being able to move the pawns so quickly is that the pawn structure, as you may have noticed, gets established very quickly. And what I mean by that is these pawns, all of these pawns basically have nowhere they can move. I guess I could move e4 if I really wanted to, but I don't want to. And then my opponent's pawns can't move because they get captured en passant. All the other pawns are just staring at another one. Okay, let's go ahead and play rook to h6, double the rook, target h7. Knight back to c6. That's the only problem with moving knights to the side, is they usually end up having to find their way back, and that costs tempo. Knight to e7. This is another good example. The position is closed, meaning we're kind of gridlocked in terms of pawns, and bishops have a hard time moving through gridlocked positions. For example, this bishop is just staring at a gridlocked pawn. But knights do very well with maneuvering around. So, my opponent plays knight to f5. I will happily trade off my bishop. In the meantime, let's go ahead and grab this free pawn, threatening that skewer so our opponent castles. Bishop to a6 is very tempting to weaken the king side. But if I play bishop to a6, knight f5, and then I trade, my queen can't actually follow up because the king controls all of those squares. So let's take a free pawn instead, pin the knight. Queen moves back. Rook to f6 seems sound, hits both of these pawns. Outpost for the rook. And really, I'd like to just trade off here as soon as possible. Okay, knight to h4 gives me 1, 2, 3 attackers on this pawn. My opponent, would only have 2 defenders. So that's definitely something that we can play to try to win that pawn. All right, rook to f8 offers a trade, actually forces one because it's pinned. But honestly, I would rather my opponent take so that I can take back and have a protected passed pawn. So let's play this, put more pressure on the position. And in just a moment, I'll shuffle my king back to the center, so I have freedom to target pawns with the rook. With that freedom, my opponent will probably have to trade off, and then I get my passed pawn. And then hopefully a queen. That would be pretty great. I've just realized I have 35 seconds left, so maybe we're not doing as hot as I thought. Let's take with the bishop. Right, I shuffle my queen out of the way. We're almost even on time, and I won't even bother moving my king anymore. Let's take back. Now we have 2 protected passed pawns, technically only 1, but we'll call this one protected because the queen is looking at it. And if my opponent just moves the queen out of the way, I can double move to promote my pawn. Oh, wow, I actually called that. There's really no reason to play this. It doesn't do anything. That was just a random arrow I made, but sure. Let's move forward and promote with check. That was quite incredible. I don't think I've ever had such a random move get played for such a great idea. All right, let's go ahead and double move this pawn as well, looking for promotion, and then surely there's mate to follow. Okay, queen to h5. Seems like grasping at straws. We now have 3 queens on the board. That's going to be very difficult to come back from. Bishop to a6. Let's just play check. Only 1 legal move. Capture with another check. And black forfeits on time, so we do win game number 3. Let's go ahead and move on to game number 4. All right, game number 4, we do get a 1400 rated player. We're supposed to get a 1700, but it's all right. We get the black pieces finally, so this could be interesting. Let's play c6, I guess. Just go for the Caro-Kann. I'm not sure if the Caro-Kann is an opening that lends itself to this variant. What? Okay, queen to h5, I immediately target the queen. If you ever see your opponent just throw a queen at you at random, try to target it while developing your pieces, especially this early in the game. We're on move number 2. Give me the queen. I will do my best to wrap this up quickly because it seems my opponent is playing for giggles and not actually trying to win. Let's go ahead and move back. Knight to f4. Let's trade. I'll develop my queen too. Nice. Threatening g2. Bishop f3 is probably necessary. Queen out of the way. Target c2. Well, let's see if I can finish this game in 30 seconds. So I don't want to go under 2 minutes 30. How about that? d4. Let's offer a trade. Giving check to the king. Probably forcing the... Okay, never mind. Free pawn. e5 to follow. Super strong center. All right, and we get the resignation, sure. With that, we win game number 4, and actually we had 3 minutes left on the clock, so extra fast. Let's go ahead and move on to game number 5. All right, game number 5, we do get a 16, almost 1700 rated player. We're going to try for the Caro-Kann again. I just realized I asked that question in the last game, but I never did answer my own question on whether or not this is actually worth anything, but it should be fine. I mean, we're asymmetrical in the sense that I have a central pawn, my opponent has an outside queenside pawn, but like concretely, I don't think that translates into anything. b3, really interesting. This is the second little bit suspicious fianchetto that we've seen. I guess looking for knight to e5, so we'll go ahead and pin the knight right away. If the whole point of both of these pieces being placed here is to support knight to e5, then I will do everything in my power to get rid of that knight. I assume knight to d2 will follow. Oh, so if I play back, is my opponent going to play g4? I'll allow it. I mean, if my opponent wants to play g4 and weaken the king side as well, I can only imagine that's good for me, because the natural idea here is c4, destabilizing my central pawn, and then looking for development of some kind, probably a queenside attack. But if my opponent plays g4 as well, then either it's queenside castle into this structure, or it's kingside castle into a very open kingside. Okay, there's the idea that we do get c4. Let's go ahead and bolster our center with e6. If our opponent takes, I might just take back with the knight to centralize the knight. I really have no interest in isolating my own pawn, and I'd much rather target my opponent's isolated pawn. Bishop to e2 looks to break the pin. So I'm going to go ahead and trade off my bishop right now, and maybe just develop with check, finish up my development with castling. Okay, let's play check. Okay, opponent blocks with the knight. Let's go ahead and castle. I assume my opponent will follow suit. And now, what's our actual idea here? Taking, and then winning this pawn. We drop b7. Let's go ahead and play rook to b8 first. I know it's kind of a lame move, but I guess that's our idea. a3, if I take, my opponent takes. There's no more idea of taking on d4. If I play here, b4, it's kind of scary because even b5 could be a little bit uncomfortable to deal with. Let's go ahead and trade this off. And now, knight to e4 is kind of interesting. Takes, gives me a pretty strong pawn to work with, so let's play that. Obviously now I'm not going to ever take on c4 because that opens up the entire center, and I have a bishop, or rather I have a knight for a bishop, so I have no interest in opening up the position. Let's drop the knight back, maybe f5. My opponent comments en passant in the middle of the board, question mark? Oh, it is. Oh, I could have taken en passant. Oh, that's kind of funny. So I assume my opponent will take en passant on e5. I assume that's possible. Oh, my opponent was asking whether that happens. Oh, I'm going to be a good sport and tell him that yes, but we'll probably lose this pawn. Okay, we get queen to g4 with the idea of... Wow, that's a very deep idea. No wonder it took my opponent down to 19 seconds. If I take en passant on d4, the pawn disappears, but then the bishop is unleashed, and then I get mated right away on g7. So instead of getting mated, let's play f5, hit the queen, defend e4. Queen moves back. Still can't take en passant, so knight to g6, I guess just brute force blocking the attack. h5 tries to open it up again. I could play knight to h4 here, although knight to e7 is probably more concrete. Problem is, knight to e7, d5, and then how do I defend this? Rook to f7, I guess? h6, g6. It should be possible to defend, but man, it looks bad. Okay, d6 threatens mate, hits the knight. So I guess rook f7 is pretty much my only option. Let's take back. Opponent is down to less than 20 seconds. Oh, I dropped the rook. Oh my goodness. Okay, this is going to be a hard one to recover from. Okay, queen takes. Let's try to get any sort of counterattack going. Let's play this, hit the rook. Right, let's play queen to g5 with the idea of f3 looking for mate. Queen back offers a queen trade, which obviously I'm not interested in, so let's take a pawn. Queen takes e6, I shuffle out of the way. Queen takes, queen back to g6, still looking for f3. Queen to e7, I can't play this, so let's play like that. If I move king g8, I trade off the queens, which would be extra terrible. Rook to e6, queen to g4, I have to keep this dream alive, I have to. Please double rooks. Bring more rooks into the attack, that's what you need. Ah, f3 stops the idea. Okay, how about taking this pawn? Why not? Take the pawn, hit the bishop. Queen takes? Does that work? Oh, of course, rook to e8, I have to block with the queen. Wow, absolutely abysmal. Is there any hope for me here at all? I don't believe there is. And with that, we actually lose game number 5. Let's go ahead and move on to game number 6. Okay, game number 6, we get the white pieces again, finally. That's why we lost, because we got the black pieces, not because we played a bad game. Let's play bishop to f4, just looking for normal development. Knight to f6, sure. We've gotten this exact same opening several times now, although to be fair, this is a pretty normal chess opening in general. Let's offer the bishop trade right away. Develop, quote-unquote, the queen. Knight to f3, this is just standard London. Nice, let's drop the bishop back with the idea of trading and unleashing the rook. Queen to d7, sure, knight d2. My opponent castles long, then we're just looking at throwing all of my pawns straight at my opponent's king, and that process will be accelerated by the fact that our pawns can move double. Okay, h5, b4. I'm more than happy to sack a pawn to open up the position. Nice. Do I bother with the recapture? I don't think I need to. Let's play a6 right away, looking for b7, looking for promotion. Opponent really has no choice but to take, and then I take back with check. Only one legal move. And with that, we win game number 6, which is our 5th victory. If you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing. Let me know down below what you guys think of torpedo chess, or if there are any other variants that I should try, and I will see you guys in the next one.